There is something kind of strange happening to the web right now. Bead. I was looking at a few new startups yesterday. They all have this exact same look.
Oh, I know the one.
Right. Faded gradients, those big blocky hero sections. It's an aesthetic epidemic.
Yeah, it really is. It feels like we were just drowning in mediocrity.
So, welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're tearing down a specific design guide by Max Ann, published in April 2026. We are going to figure out why we keep accepting this cheap AI look. And more importantly, we're unpacking his 8-step protocol to fix it.
It is a much-needed teardown of our current digital landscape.
Let's start with the sheer scale of this problem. Max Ann points out the hallmark signs of unguided AI design. We've got the faded gradient backgrounds.
Right.
We've got these massive, completely unimaginative hero sections. The typography is just flat and lifeless.
Yeah, and the copywriting is equally bad. The AI always defaults to these universally generic phrases.
Like what?
It'll always say something hollow, like, we help teams collaborate.
Well, it's functional, I suppose, but it makes you feel absolutely nothing.
Exactly. You look at it and just think, yep, that is a web page. It never looks like a premium product. It definitely doesn't look like something you would pay real money for.
I actually have to make a vulnerable admission here. I still wrestle with prompt drift myself.
Oh, we all do.
I mean, I'll start with this grand design vision. I want something sleek, something highly interactive.
Right.
But then the machine output, something that barely works. The layout is just kind of okay, and I surrender.
You just accept it.
I accept it just because it technically compiled without throwing an error.
That is the trap right there. You hit a wall of exhaustion.
It's like stacking Lego blocks of data without a blueprint. It holds up the roof, but it is definitely not beautiful.
That's a perfect analogy. You get the structure, but you completely lose the soul. The AI gives you the absolute minimum viable visual.
But why are we collectively so willing to settle for these emotionally flat layouts?
I really think it comes down to sheer cognitive load. There's this massive psychological relief when the code finally runs.
Oh, wow, yeah.
Right. That wave of relief makes us drop our aesthetic standards entirely. We stop fighting the machine because basic functionality feels like a finish line.
So we accept the default because functionality overrides aesthetics.
Exactly. We settle for average because average finally works.
That brings us to the root cause of the problem. Why is the AI producing this cheap output to begin with? Max Ann argues that the tool itself isn't actually the problem.
It rarely is. The problem usually sits between the keyboard and the chair.
He points out a huge flaw in our baseline human behavior. Most people treat Claude Code exactly like a search engine.
They do. They just type a vague request into the prompt box, hit enter, and wait for magic.
But Claude Code isn't a search engine. Let's define this clearly for you listening. Claude Code is an AI tool that writes software based on your text.
Right. And that passive search engine approach works fine for the back end. A Python sorting algorithm doesn't really need to look pretty.
No, it doesn't.
But you can't just search your way to a premium user interface.
It requires a completely different mental framework.
It really does. 2-sec silence. Whoa. Imagine taking raw robotic code and turning it into an elite digital product just by changing the text constructions.
Yeah.
The sheer scale of what this tool can do is breathtaking.
It feels like digital alchemy, but only if you're holding the right spellbook.
Without a specific aesthetic compass, the AI just averages out the entire internet. It pulls from millions of mediocre websites.
Right.
It literally gives you the mathematical mean of global web design.
Let me push back on that a little bit. Is it really fair to blame the human user here? These AI tools are constantly marketed as the ultimate creative experts.
I think it is absolutely fair. AI is a powerful, tireless executor, but it's a terrible mind reader. If you don't provide a high-taste aesthetic compass, it defaults to the middle. You have to treat it like an eager but uncreative production assistant.
Right. The AI simply executes. You must provide the vision.
Exactly. You are the director on the movie set, not a passive spectator.
So how do we become better directors? Max Ann lays out a strict 8-step protocol. Let's dig into the actual mechanics of this workflow.
This is where we move from theory into actual engineering.
Step 1 isn't even about writing code. It's about setting up the environment. The guide specifically focuses on configuring a .md file.
Right, you're establishing the ground rules before the AI writes a single line. You're feeding it high-quality visual inspiration right out of the gate.
You can't just say, make it look good. You actually have to show it what excellence looks like first.
You provide reference screenshots, you give it a real target to aim at.
Then we move to the specific tools, and this is where I find the guide really fascinating. We are completely moving away from writing raw CSS from scratch.
Asking an AI to write scratch code is super dangerous. It gives the machine way too much freedom to hallucinate.
Instead, you build on rigid, established frameworks. The guide highlights using Tailwind CSS and shadcn UI.
Those frameworks force the AI to maintain strict visual consistency.
I want to break this down a bit. What is shadcn UI exactly?
Think of shadcn UI as prefabricated high-end architectural blocks. It gives the AI perfectly designed buttons, cards, and navigation bars.
And what about Tailwind CSS? How does that change the AI's behavior?
Think of Tailwind like giving the AI a hyper-curated box of crayons.
Ooh, I like that.
It prevents the AI from using the 10 million random hex codes on the web. It forces the machine to stick to a very strict, harmonious design system.
So we're essentially building walls around the AI. We're forcing it into a premium tier by limiting its choices. We're building a highly constrained SaaS interface.
Exactly.
Let's quickly clarify that term. A SaaS interface is the digital screens users click around in a web application.
And those screens need to feel professional, cohesive, and incredibly sharp.
Next, the protocol tackles the visual polish. This is the difference between a functional prototype and a real product. You have to treat backgrounds as deliberate design choices.
Yeah, the faded gray gradient has to die.
Agreed? Then, we start adding complex motion to the interface. The guide recommends a very specific animation tool called GSAP.
Motion is what makes a digital interface actually feel alive.
But wait, why do we even need those specific third-party tools? If Claude is so smart, why can't I just say, code me an animation?
Because native CSS animations generated by AI usually feel incredibly rigid. They lack any real-world physics or natural easing.
Right.
GSAP gives the AI a mathematical framework for organic, beautiful motion.
The typography gets an upgrade next.
Fonts carry the hidden emotional weight of your entire brand. The AI usually picks Inter or Roboto. You have to explicitly push it toward premium typefaces.
The guide also suggests incorporating three-dimensional graphics using Spline 3D. Isn't 3D a bit of an overkill for a basic web app?
Not anymore. It adds a layer of depth that immediately signals a premium product.
Okay.
It separates the quick AI wrappers from the actual serious software companies.
The final step of the protocol is rigorous visual iteration. This is a crucial feedback loop. You don't just read the raw code the AI generates.
No, the AI is essentially blind to its own visual output. It knows the syntax is correct, but it doesn't know if it looks terrible.
So you have to take screenshots of the rendered page. You feed those images right back into the prompt box. You literally show the machine its own visual mistakes.
It's an active dialogue. You highlight the misaligned button. You point out the clashing colors.
Let me ask you a foundational question about all of this. Why rely so heavily on these strict frameworks instead of letting the AI freely code?
Standardized frameworks provide the AI with highly reliable, high-quality mathematical boundaries. They completely prevent the AI from hallucinating broken layouts or janky animations.
Standardized tools give the AI reliable boundaries for premium design.
Precisely. You are giving it the best possible constraints. Sponsor.
Welcome back to our deep dive. Let's tie these technical engineering steps back to the human element. The conclusion of Max Am's guide is actually deeply optimistic.
It is an incredibly empowering shift for anyone trying to build software today.
The barrier to entry for beautiful design has been completely shattered. You really don't need to be a traditional designer anymore.
No, you don't.
You don't need an art degree to fix this cheap AI aesthetic.
The technical execution has been completely commoditized by the machine.
What you actually need now is fundamentally better taste. You need better visual input, you need better instructions, and better technical tools like Tailwind and GSAP.
You're shifting your goal entirely. You are no longer just trying to output functional code. Your baseline is now an elite digital product.
But if we perfectly follow this strict 8-step protocol, does it mean the era of casual prompt and pray web building is officially over?
Casual building will always exist for personal hacks or quick internal tools, but commercial premium results will now strictly require this deliberate directorial mindset. You simply can't just guess and hope for the best anymore if you want people to pay you.
Casual building stays, but premium results demand deliberate human direction.
Exactly. The baseline for commercial software has been permanently raised.
Let's pull all these complex threads together. The big idea here is actually incredibly simple to grasp. We have to stop accepting generic faded gradient layouts.
They're a massive disservice to the actual software you're trying to build.
The AI models like Claude Code are truly incredible executors, but they remain absolutely terrible mind readers.
Yeah.
When you treat them like a basic search engine, you get average results.
You get the exact mathematical middle of the internet, and the middle is boring.
But when you treat the AI like a true design collaborator, when you use highly constrained tools like Tailwind and GSAP,
Right.
when you provide clear, beautiful inspiration and strict visual boundaries, that's exactly when you get truly premium software.
You elevate yourself from a passive consumer to an active architect.
I want to speak directly to you now. Next time you open up an AI coding assistant, pause for just a moment before you hit that enter key. Ask yourself a very simple, clarifying question.
Yeah.
Am I treating this like a search engine, or am I providing a blueprint?
That single moment of hesitation will change everything you build.
Here's a final provocative thought for you to mull over. We now have an AI that perfectly executes an elite interface based on a single screenshot. So what happens to the core definition of a designer 5 years from now? 2-sec silence. Think about those blocky, generic hero sections one last time. They aren't a permanent limitation of the machine. They are just waiting for your human vision. LTRO music.